Keeping you informed.
Of November. Call the roll, please.
They note to let through out drive bit of drive keep
Okay. Please.
learned really interested, and I would
Any questions from council? Julie?
I have to say you have a very impressive application. So I'm
Thank
really
you.
excited that you want to join the youth commission because things in your youth in the city of Northglenn. You said you really want to try and raise items such as food, clothes, and educational supplies for homeless kids in Northglenn. How do you think you might be able to, how would you want to try and do that?
well, I think we could do that where like the parents at our schools could donate stuff for the home maybe library.
Well,
I just want to thank you for coming. I know that shows your enthusiasm, so I just want to thank you so much for the application, and it's definitely.
Yes? I just want to say thank you because this is where it starts. High school, college, community. And the more experience, you're already very articulate when you speak. Continue to grow yourself, you will go.
Thank you.
All right, proclamations. Would council join me down below? We have 2 proclamations this evening. Take care. Who's the first one? Then bring them
Small Business Saturday.
in this order.
Yes.
Debbie Tell. proclamation reads, whereas the government of Northglenn, Colorado celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.7 million small businesses in the United States of America. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States, are responsible for 64.9% of net new jobs created in 2000 and 2018. And whereas small businesses employ 47.3% of all businesses with employees in the United States, and whereas 94% of consumers in the United States value the contribution small businesses make to their community. Plan to shop on Small Business Saturday, said the day inspires them to go to small they have not been to before. Otherwise tried. Percent of the companies planning promotions on Small Business Saturdays said that the day helps their business stand out during shopping season, and whereas the city of Northglenn supports our local economy and preserves our neighborhoods, and whereas advocacy groups have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November the 30th, 2009. Our community of the year, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 25th day of November, 2019. Congratulations, Debbie.
Thank you. Yeah, we can take a picture now. I think. Excellent. Again.
Gracious, if you would, please.
Well, I was the second. That you haven't gone to ice cream, cleaning, or getting your car.
Next up, I will invite Doug Goodfeather. The proclamation here. Proclamation that Native American Heritage Month. 100 years to get here. How about that? Ancestral homelands of the 48 tribes and the city of Northglenn and surrounding communities are home to descendants of approximately 100 tribal nations and whereas the Apache, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, the Pueblo, the Shoshone, Ute Nation, and other inhabitants of what is now Colorado. And survival of the earliest settlers by teaching them means of survival and providing access to food. And whereas our indigenous people's knowledge, science, philosophy, and arts and culture have greatly enriched our lives, and whereas Native American individuals now contribute to all areas of life in Colorado, including government, business, arts, and science, medicine, education, law enforcement, and the military. And whereas Native American Heritage Month is an occasion to recognize the value and vast contributions made to our community through thousands of American Indians in Colorado, whose abilities and contributions strengthen our economy, enrich our culture, and invigorate our communities. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Esquivel, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 2009 month in the City of Northglenn as we celebrate and honor the cultural and foundational contributions of Native Americans in our history, past, present, and future. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 25th day of November, 2019.
Thank you so much.
Say a few words, please.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Northglenn, to the mayor, to the city council, all my people, and the indigenous people here in this country. But in the time of the beginning of America, we have been through so much. And today is to remember, but also to learn and to grow and to create good healing and understanding and education through what we do in Lakota Way Healing Center. So again, we say thank you. We appreciate this.
All right, so we'll do the same thing. You guys can go up 2 steps. All right. Everybody? All right, that's, I think that looks pretty good. Make sure Julie's not hiding. All right, so we're good. 1, 2, 3. I messed it up, sorry. One, two, three. Last one. All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Presentations. Order 3 report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Debbie Tuttle, Economic Development Manager for the City of Northglenn. Quarter 3 was exciting for us. You've got the report in front of you, so I won't go over everything, but we're really excited to have Senior Hub back. They moved out of the same building, which is the Ramus Law Building, 3 years ago, and they have they went to Federal Heights. They've now combined both their food pantry and also their Meals on Wheels, as well as they got a big conference room and space to have classes there. So we're real excited to have them back. We're going to be doing a formal ribbon cutting and open house on December 10th from 4 to 6, so we encourage you to come out for that. Also, we did the groundbreaking for the Scooters Coffee Shop. As you can see up here, they will be open probably in quarter 1. This is a great company, family owned and operated, so we're glad to have them here in Northglenn. Next, our existing businesses are expanding and in reinvesting, which is always a great thing. Altas Law, they moved here in 2 years ago, actually, brand new attorney, does probate and so forth, and he actually purchased one of the condos in Office Plaza South, so he made a huge investment over there. Also, Bank of the West, as we all know, at 104th in Huron, they called me and they said, you know, Huron Center looks so good, we think we need to be doing some work too. So it always helps, just kind of like our neighborhood and beautification, it works on commercial centers as well. So they're going to be doing some interior and exterior improvements. Bed Bath & Beyond, if you haven't gone there, definitely do. It's really a beautiful center. This is the new prototype that they're going to be using. This is the first one that they've done and built, and it'll be the first one in the nation and internationally. So we're proud to have them here in Northglenn. And of course, KFC, they opened last year, but we did the actual ribbon cutting just recently, and they were awarded the Business Appreciation Breakfast, but they invested $1.5 million. New businesses and ribbon cuttings that had come, Wagging Tails Dog Resort and Spa, they took almost 7,500 square feet, so that was a big expansion for that site, as well as Sacris CrossFit and Mia Ranchoa. They have an ice cream shop. With that, I'm going to go through this quick because I know we all want to get out for the snow here. Economic development, business retention efforts. One of the biggest things that we do in our department, and one of the most important things we do, is to retain and expand our existing businesses. Because once they're here, they've invested into our community. So, these are some events that we had done. I think I might have skipped a slide there. No, I didn't. Okay, there we go. These are some of the events that we've done for our business community. As you probably know, we did the Business Appreciation Breakfast, the park dedication for the park bench, for the Legacy Award. We did the Adams Walk. Some of the we held our meeting. We also had our one that we've held with the police. Voice. Oops, something happened there. New storefront, new home-based businesses. You'll see here, this shows you kind of where those 15 businesses were located. The majority of 7 of them were in the market. Taken off. There's only about 5 more spaces left there. So that is really encouraging for that space. These are the NERA resolutions, the Northglenn Urban Renewal. They appreciated. They gave us $3,000 in 1927, which authorized for $11,500,000, and that is for the Civic Center. Okay. Great businesses that are celebrating in Q3 their anniversary, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and so on. I think what's exciting for me is to see the ones in the as well as like Bad Daddies, Tzatziki's, Cafe Rio, all those ones over at Webster Lake Promenade. So it's really nice to see some of the companies that have moved in since we started this. Unemployment, as you can see, we were at 4.8 at the beginning of the year, and we're at 2.4 now, which is always a good sign. Commercial real estate, everything was down. Our vacancy rates were down in office. Industrial at 1.1, we're staying stable there. And at retail, we went from 11.2 in quarter 2 down to 8.6, which is a very positive sign. Housing market, our average median home price as of November 8th, and the majority of the other areas. Our website, as you can see, the business directory is being used. All those spikes right there, people actually doing Shop Northglenn. We encourage people to go there for anything that they might need. So we're glad to see that people are using that. A couple other things I'd like to say. On behalf of the Economic Development Department, I'd really like to personally thank Marcy Whitman for 8 years of sitting and serving on our Economic Development Retention Committee. She did everything from small ideas like our anniversary cards, which our businesses absolutely love, that we send out every month, to, of course, our everything in between, but our business appreciation breakfast. You've been instrumental in all of those things, so thank you very much, Marcy. And other updates that aren't included in here, but I just want to give a quick update there. The courts is almost done. They hope to have a ribbon cutting in January and February. They'll probably open in December. The same with Second Time Sports. They're doing their tenant finish. They hope to. Coffee is going through the entitlement process right now. They'll move at 104th and I-25, so where the old Starbucks was. Any questions for me?
So I have just 4 things. One thing that I wanted to just that council and Corey to maybe look at is on the economic development page, and as we're doing these retention walks, is hearing some great things that are happening with the businesses and or things that they are doing, whether it's an event or special programs or workforce. And currently, policy doesn't allow the Economic Development Office to promote that. And I'm just wondering if we can kind of revisit that and see what might have potentially changed and be able to maybe craft some language that goes along with a post that we are not necessarily endorsing a particular business, but just allows Debbie to be able to better promote the businesses and or the centers. I think that's always been a challenge that we've had, and I think just as more and more social media continues to be so prevalent in our daily lives, I just would love to see some more flexibility in that for economic development. So I leave it to you all to figure out how to do that.
Thank you, Marcy.
You're welcome. And then I also wanted to just say, because Debbie started August or May?
May.
May.
Yeah.
May of the year I got elected. And it's been great to see, stop it. It's been great to see the in and talk to them. And now they want us. So thank you.
Help and everybody else from council for all that you do to help support our economic development. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
We're good. Thank you, Debbie. Next up is public environment. Shall be related to city business. No, is anybody here?
Really mostly second, and looking forward to some great discussion.
Any questions for the legislative committee? Okay. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Joanne, would you open the vote, please?
Yep, the vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close.
Public hearings, CB 1937. Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting sections 11-3-6 and 11-7-3 of the Northglenn Municipal Code regarding oil and gas operations.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing.
And Mr. Mayor, we do have a presentation from our special counsel, Matt Sura is here. And it's probably better to do that presentation during the public hearing since this is oil and gas related. We'll make a record of the various parts of Mr. Sura's PowerPoint.
Okay.
Is that pulled up?
Huh?
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I understand that the snow is piling up, so I'm going to try to make it brief, and certainly not going to go through anything that we've already discussed in previous meetings. Online a presentation, we've talked a lot about regulations and the proposed best management practices. Later, again, the wells that you're seeing here, the purple ones are already drilled. The green ones are permitted by the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and the light blue are currently pending that state agency. It can happen very fast. So we're looking here at Northglenn, certainly the main part of Northglenn in the southern area. Not likely to see any oil and gas development, frankly, based on the fact that even the meager setbacks at the state of 500 feet from a home would prohibit most oil and gas development from your area. There may be a few areas, but frankly, I don't think that there's many operators who would want to risk drilling that close to Northglenn, Thornton, anywhere over there. However, we know that the Section 36 is an area that is currently seeing a lot of oil and gas development pressure, both inside that current development of Section 36 and all around it. And this is Section 36. Again, you've got your treatment plant there. Every one of those red dots and the kind of spider legs that go out are oil and gas wells. And those oil and gas wells are what we call directional oil and gas wells. The reason that they're going out there, they're going on a slant, and then they hit the in this area. You can see there are some symbols. I, which stands for shut-in, meaning that they're not currently producing, but they could be capable of producing. They're not abandoned locations. You see one that says PA there, that's plugged and abandoned. It's right there. And this one is PR, which means producing. These are all what used to be known as Anadarko wells. It's now become Occidental Petroleum. Oil and gas development is generally multi-well and large industrial complexes, such as this one outside of Berthoud. Senate Bill 181 did change things for local governments, and specifically it allows you to regulate the siting and surface impacts, and specifically states that there is no state preemption any longer. That was something that had really hamstrung and really made it difficult for local governments such as yourselves to be able to regulate the industry meaningfully. Essentially, you were tied to whatever those minimum state regulations stated. Specifically, it says that oil and gas siting and surface impacts can be regulated as necessary and reasonable. So there are some limits there, some guideposts, as it were, as to what you can do. Probably banning it outright without good reasoning would not be considered necessary or reasonable. However, it specifically states that you can look into location and siting, including using your zoning authority, mitigation of impacts to protect public health, safety, welfare, and the environment, looking at financial issues, making sure that this industry isn't costing you or taxpayers for the regulation and inspection of the industry, and then enforcing. When you find that they are in violation, you have the ability to enforce, including assessing penalties. So the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has been engaged in a study both on the Front Range in Weld County and on the Western Slope in Garfield County since 2014. Both in 2014 and 2015, they took canister samples, air quality samples, for about 24 hours outside of some oil and gas facilities. These oil and gas operators knew that the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment were there, and frankly, were doing what they could to ensure that they weren't emitting a lot of pollution, because they knew that they were being monitored. It took a while for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to analyze that data. In the Hickenlooper administration in 2017, they came out with a big announcement. We have found that in looking at the raw data, we don't see that there's a real problem for having oil and gas facilities within 500 feet of homes, which is the minimum setback for an oil and gas facility to be to a home is 500 feet. CDPHE funded a study saying, let's publish our results. Let's look into that and do some modeling to determine that there aren't any health impacts. We're heartened to hear that. They did modeling and found out that indeed there weren't any long-term health impacts. There weren't any kind of medium-range health impacts, but acute health impacts did exist, potentially, through the modeling. They had some spikes of benzene and some other chemicals that are known carcinogens or toxic, enough to give them pause and to say, you know what, under the worst case scenario, if there was stagnant air and, you know, maybe in a depression and it was leaking all night, there's a possibility that you could have some acute exposure to benzene, which would cause some of the concerns that we're already hearing from the public that are near these locations. Skin irritation, bloody noses, headaches. Sometimes, it can even be digestive issues. So what the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission did was immediately say that we're going to locations that are going to be within 2,000 feet of a home. Now again, the setback, the minimum setback is 500 feet, but they're going to be kind of giving additional scrutiny for locations that are within 2,000 feet of homes. They're also doing some additional research right now, and they're going to be taking sampling over the next 6 months and using that research to inform new setbacks potentially or mitigation measures. Maybe nothing. Maybe they find that that was an anomaly, and those problems that they found in 2014, 2015 don't exist in the real world. Are there any questions about that? So Northglenn's current regulatory approach to oil and gas is the municipal code was written in 2011, that section of the municipal code that deals with oil and gas. It allows oil and gas development in all zone districts. That was required, frankly. You could have been sued and successfully sued for preemption, potentially, if you had prohibited oil and gas development in any of your zone districts. It defers to the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission to avoid operational conflict, and allows a planning commission to recommend conditions of approval, and finally, the decision is yours. and it did allow for penalties to be assessed for violations of your code. The proposed changes that we're looking at are just essentially taking advantage of all the new authority that you have under Senate Bill 181. First, using your full zoning authority to require proposed locations to stay outside of residentially zoned areas. It also requires at least 1,000 feet from homes, platted residential lots. Now, this is exactly what is already has been approved by Adams County. And you wouldn't want to go anything less than Adams County based on the fact that you wouldn't want to be a magnet for oil and gas development. If Adams County, the county is stricter in their siting requirements than any municipality, then automatically oil and gas industry is going to want to go where it's going to be easiest for them, and they would be drawn to Northglenn. So we want to make sure that we're at least as strict as Adams County. The mitigation of impacts, requiring best management practices, and I know that that's a long list that I've burdened you with, but it is currently the best management practices in the state of Colorado. This is a document that we expect is going to change, and that's one of the reasons why it is a separate document, separate from the city code provisions that we're putting forward. And then financial issues to ensure that there are adequate insurance and performance security to cover any emergencies and reasonable fees for inspections.
Matt,
Yeah,
may I ask a question?
sure.
So this is 1,000-foot setback from residential. What about commercial or other, like potentially unoccupied structures?
It is requiring oil and gas development, only allowing oil and gas development in certain zone districts, and those are, don't include commercial. It also is prohibiting any development outside of 3 zone districts, and those are the open space, specifically for utilities, and industrial, agricultural, and that's it. So these are the locations that they are allowing would be eligible for oil and gas. Again, industrial, agricultural, and that is public facilities, which is public infrastructure, public open space. So as you can see, very little opportunity within the main part of Northglenn, southern Northglenn. Really not an opportunity, frankly, for oil and gas development in this area. And not even under state law, frankly, could they find a location. It'd be very difficult to find a location 500 feet away from a home or a school. However, as you can see up here, the entire area would be in the zone districts that would be capable of being developed, and that's agricultural on the east side of Section 36 and public facility on the west. If you get a little closer, though, and following your direction, we looked at what would be a 1,000-foot setback from any home, regardless of if it was within the city limits of Northglenn or not. And that came up with these setbacks that you can see here. Again, there are still opportunities for oil and gas development in the interior of probably only this agricultural section, possibly over here. So, you know, there are opportunities, and I think that makes sense, frankly, because there are currently a dozen or so wells in that area. Those wells, if that area were to be developed with horizontal wells, all of those wells, existing wells, would be plugged and abandoned permanently. And ultimately, you could see probably less impact on the surface if you were to allow oil and gas development under that property, or even on top of that property, than you have currently. Financial issues, requirements in 11.3.6D2, we're looking at application fees, cost reimbursement agreements, insurance, financial assurance, and inspection fees. Operator is required to implement continuous air quality monitoring. Getting into best management practices, we're looking at some of the best management practices that have ever been put forward in the country, frankly. And Colorado is really at a leading edge working on these issues because we've had to. Local governments have been going into operator agreements and trying to negotiate some of the use of these best management practices in places like Brighton, Erie, Broomfield, Aurora, Commerce City now. There's a number of locations, and every one of those local governments shares their best management practices with one another. We know that these best management practices are necessary and reasonable because, certainly they're reasonable because the industry has already agreed to them voluntarily in other places. But they truly are far and away much better and more strict than current state standards. These are the types of categories: air quality, water quality, use of pipelines, all of these different sections, including safety, risk management, visual mitigation, et cetera. And air quality, we're looking at ambient air quality sampling. What is the baseline? What is the air quality before the oil and gas industry that gets there, and requiring them to follow up with sampling to find out how it's changed. Also requiring best management practices, electric equipment, green completions, dust and odor controls, and getting away from tanks. Frankly, tanks, it turns out, are the biggest emission sources in the oil and gas field. If you force them to use pipelines and remove all those tanks, you've eliminated probably 80% of possible emission sources. Water quality, ensuring that they disclose what chemicals they're using, and testing all available sources within a half mile. And this is something that has been requested by the Tri-County Health. Water quality, ensuring that they don't use any of these chemicals that are known to be carcinogenic and problematic. Again, these are chemicals that had been used in the past by the industry but are going to be prohibited within Northglenn. Closed-loop pitless systems, containment berms. Again, pipelines for your money are probably the best mitigation, other than not having it all or making sure that it's in a very safe location. Location is certainly the most important mitigation, but pipelines are, again, really important because of the air quality benefits that I just mentioned, but also you're eliminating all that truck traffic. After the oil and gas development is actually done, the drilling has occurred, hydraulic fracturing has occurred, the flowback has occurred, you get into a production phase which can last as much as 30 years. The only real impacts after that are truck traffic, and particularly oil trucks coming and going from those locations. And if you can eliminate that, you've eliminated the majority of the impacts for the duration of the production phase of those oil and gas facilities. Noise mitigation is currently, the Colorado Gas Conservation Commission allows for these industrial sites to make industrial level noise. And that can be as up to 80 decibels, which is the start of being damaging to human hearing. What we have here is not to exceed 55 decibels, which is about the level that I'm talking at right now, or 4 decibels higher than the baseline ambient noise. So nowhere near industrial level noise, more like commercial. Frankly, you probably have more noise being near a busy road than you will at one of these facilities. They're going to have a traffic control plan. Again, pipelines being really important to that. Visual mitigation, making sure that it is going to be something that the oil and gas nature is hidden from view from any nearby roads. Not allowing any pump jacks. Once these wells kind of deplete, there is a requirement to eventually stimulate those oil wells after the natural pressure, underground pressure, has dissipated. And those pump jacks are a common way that they do it. Well, they're really unsightly, and if you've got multiple wells and multiple pump jacks, each well needing their own pump jack, that would increase the impacts, both visually as well as noise, to that area. And so we're eliminating that by having them use other technologies other than pump jacks. They're going to be required to outreach to citizens, give you biannual updates just while they're doing the drilling, not when they get into production phase, just to make sure that everything is going well, and ultimately a final reclamation plan. After they're gone, there should be no way of noticing that they were there. It should be returned back to what it was. So that's my presentation.
Thank you,
I'm
Matthew.
happy to
Any
take.
questions for Matthew?
I have one question about the noise mitigation.
Sure.
Is there some type of way that you measure noise? Is there like noise monitoring, or is it just based off of complaints?
That's a great question. So there are noise meters, and my sense is that if Northglenn were to have any oil and gas development within its city limits and probably in Section 36, this would be something that you'd have to consider, is whether or not you wanted to have a part-time inspector. And my recommendation at that inspector, because you're not going to have anywhere near the amount dictate having your own inspector, but working in concert with Adams County. Adams County is going to have at least 3 inspectors likely, and paying for, you know, a portion of one of those inspectors, I think makes a lot of sense. Even though Section 36 is in Weld County, I've looked into it, and I believe that because if you enter into an MOU, they could certainly come into there, and essentially they'd be working for you rather than Adams County. So something to consider in the future. That inspector would have a noise meter, and a noise meter that would have to be calibrated and, you know, ensure that Adams County has already and will likely continue to be working with Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission and able to enforce Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission regulations. They're also going to be able to enforce those lower noise standards that City of Northglenn passes.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Really?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, can you help me understand why we believe that the public facilities zoning is compatible with oil and gas development? I noticed here that for the most part, any areas that are parks are technically zoned for the public facilities, but aren't compatible given the proximity to residences. But can you speak to why we believe that it's compatible in the Section 36 area?
Well, so there are 2 types of public facilities, and if memory serves, there are parks, and then there's more of the facilities, the industrial nature of a water treatment plant, as an example. That is typically not an area where you're going to see a lot of residential development. There are also, so, you know, majority of your impacts to the population are going to be eliminated based on the fact that there's not many people living out there. Nuisance issues are some of your biggest concerns. Contamination of water is not going to happen because there's just no water wells out there. There's also any air quality concerns that you might have, again, are not going to be felt by an industrial facility that you have out there. So given the fact that there's already oil and gas development in that area, we're trying to allow for some reasonable accommodation of the oil and gas industry. But having said that, you know, you could certainly decide that it's just going to be allowed in agricultural and limit that location to just the east side of Section 36.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Matthew.
It's my pleasure.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against? No one, I will close the public hearing. PB 1939, Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending Section 9-9-2, subsection E2 of the Northglenn Municipal Code regarding the definition of openly and publicly for the purposes of marijuana possession and/or consumption.